Welcome back, everyone. So I just wanted to take a few minutes at the beginning of this video to thank each and every one of you that has taken a moment to donate to me and this YouTube channel. It is greatly appreciated, and I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you so very much. It's absolutely helping me to continue doing what I'm doing and share this with you. So thank you. All right, so let's get started with the class today. Now, the thing that's been coming up for me this week in class and in my own practice is all about developing a home practice. And what better time to begin to explore that a little bit more, especially if you haven't yet, than this time, because really we don't have a choice, right? We are at home and we have to be. So we have all of these wonderful things around us to support us. These classes like this, live stream classes, you know, they're just endlessly out there right now. But ultimately what it comes down to with yoga is to begin to learn how to find our own natural rhythm and to develop our own inner guide and our own home practice, right? Where we don't need necessarily someone else to be doing it for us in a way. Now, again, I'm not saying these things aren't hugely important. They are, because they support us in that. But what we're going to be looking at a little more deeply this week is tapping into our own natural rhythm and our own natural breath. And how, when we do that, it can really allow us to begin to concentrate our mind in a way that we are stronger and more steadfast in staying on the mat by ourselves, if that makes sense. So before we start practicing, make sure you have your props and your mat set up. Two main things you really need today: a couple blocks, and if you don't have blocks, grab books. You can stack books on top of each other. Blocks are a really important part of the practice because they give us more freedom. You know, when we put our hands on blocks, say in the standing poses, what we're doing there is raising the floor up a little bit. And then when we place the fingertips on the blocks rather than the floor, it creates a lot more freedom in the spine and the chest and the neck. So make sure you have something like that, and then a blanket if you want to pad your knees when you're doing a low lunge, or we'll be laying flat on the belly today, so you may need to put it underneath your hips to pad your hip points if you're on a hard surface. So get all those things ready, and then once you're ready, take a moment, set yourself up, and let your eyes close. So as you close your eyes, let's begin by bringing our attention down to the foundation of the body. And using the heels of the hands, begin to ground the top of your thighs down into whatever you're sitting on. And as the thighs ground down, feel how that affects your spine. It's that sense of rebounding, right? The more we ground the thighs down, the more the spine can begin to lift and lengthen. Now, as the spine lengthens here, draw the shoulders up and back gently and broaden and open your chest and your collarbones. So what we're doing here is bringing the body back to its most natural alignment, and then bringing the spine back into its natural curves. And that really sets up our foundation so that we can begin to shift our attention to the breath. So if our body is moving or fidgeting all over the place, then most likely the mind is also moving all over the place. Right? So in yoga, we learn first through the body, the more gross part of ourselves. And we begin to train our body to become more still and steady and stable. So now as you sit still, bring your attention to your breath. And without trying to change your breath in any way, just begin to notice the natural breath. Maybe you notice the movement of your belly as you breathe. Or maybe you notice the sensations of the breath at the area of the nostrils as you breathe. Whatever feels most available to you, just begin to notice your natural rhythm. Allow your mind to concentrate on the natural flow of your breath, not how you think the breath is supposed to be, but exactly your breath as it is. And begin to concentrate, to focus your mind there. And this is really our starting point. This is where we meet ourselves at our most authentic in this moment, right? Is the natural state of the breath. So we'll sit quietly for about 1 more minute together. And just begin to tap into your natural flow. So letting outside sounds, outside movements be there, but you're choosing very consciously not to allow yourself to become distracted by those things, right? There's always something we could focus on outside of ourselves. But developing your own home practice is all about not allowing those things to pull you away. Strengthening your mind enough that you can stay present with the breath, with your body, for as long as you choose. So softly allow your eyes to open. And make your way to child's pose on your mat. So now as you come down into your child's pose, just relax for a moment. Let everything soften down. And before you start to move or engage anything, again, just tap into your natural breath. Maybe now as you begin to move, the breath wants to naturally start to lengthen. but allow it to be natural. We're not here to force the breath. Just let it lengthen naturally. So now extend your arms a little bit more fully, inching the fingertips further towards the top of the mat, pressing down through your hands, all your fingertips and the inner edges of the hands, and then lift up your arms so your forearms are lifting all the way up into your armpits. Lift them up. Even lift your forehead off the mat for a moment. And then imagine that there's a hand right between your shoulder blades, and that hand is very softly pressing your chest down towards the mat as your armpits lift up. So there's this balanced action. We call this balanced action, right? One part of the body is going in one direction and the other part is going in the opposite direction. And then can you balance out those two actions? Continuing to soften your chest down and eventually let your forehead rest back down on the mat again. Now inhale and come all the way up to your hands and knees. And bring your knees in underneath your hips and your shoulders over your wrists. Let's take cat-cow slowly, just to move and warm up the spine. And again, as you're moving here, move with your natural rhythm. Move with your breath. And so, eventually you are becoming your own guide. Just do a couple more of these slowly. And then we're going to take a downward facing dog, but the way we're going to do it today is with the feet nice and wide. So walk your hands up to the top of the mat and tuck your toes, lift your knees, and walk your feet out as wide as your mat. As wide as your mat. Now bend your knees deeply, and as you bend your knees, widen your knees slightly and track the kneecaps in line with the second toes. Really nice deep bend in the knees, and then look up between your hands for a moment, bending your elbows slightly to the side. Now you're going to lift your armpits just like you did in child's pose a moment ago, and then soften the chest back towards your thighs. Relax your head without tucking the chin. Now keep the armpits lifting and press your thighs back. Lift and broaden your sit bones and move your lower back in, so you're establishing that lumbar curve, that concave curve in the lower part of your spine. Then slowly bring your knees back down again. And here is where you may want to use a blanket under your knees. You can pad your knees if you need to. We're going to step the right foot through between the hands and set up for a low lunge. Also, blocks are handy. If you feel like when you're coming down here, you really feel like you're kind of rounding or hunching the back, then place the blocks under your hands and notice how much more space and freedom it gives you, okay? So with those blocks, if you need them, now lift your chest up and then slowly come on all the way up with your hands on your hips. Draw your shoulders back, lift your chest and engage your legs, firm your leg muscles, and then take both arms forward in front of your shoulders, drawing from your fingertips and plugging your arm bones into the shoulder sockets. Now sweep your arms all the way up alongside your ears. And breathe here, firming the legs, descending a little deeper, and then lifting your chest, lifting your chest. Now exhale and come all the way back down. Place the hands and again, take your wide-legged downward dog. So walk your feet out as wide as the mat. Bend your knees deeply. Open the knees until the kneecaps are lined up with the second toes. Lift your head, look up between your hands. Slightly bend the elbows to the side, lift the armpits up
And then move your chest like you had that hand right between your shoulder blades, just gently softening the chest back towards the thighs. Relax the head down without tucking your chin, and then press the top of your thighs back, still with the knees bent here. Nice smooth breath. Again, just let it be your natural breath. Making sure, most important, that you're not holding your breath. Okay? And then bring your knees back down here and do the second side low lunge. Left foot forward. Use blocks again for your hands if you need, and then rise up slowly. So I like to keep my back toes tucked, you guys. Reason being is because it gives me a lot more control and engagement in my back leg. And then it allows me to actually move the top of this thigh back rather than jamming that front thigh or that back thigh forward towards the front of the pelvis. So explore it. If you're not used to tucking your toes, try it and see how it feels. So now engaging the legs, sitting down a little deeper into your left hip. Take the arms forward, draw from the fingertips, plug the arm bones in and sweep your arms up alongside your ears. Affirming the legs as you descend, lifting the chest up. Now exhale, come on all the way down. And again, let's take one last wide-legged downward facing dog here. Bend your knees. So that now when we bend the knees, the focus is pressing the top of the thighs back rather than the knees. Okay, so keep your knees bent, ground your thighs back into your hamstrings, lift your armpits, and soften your chest back towards your thighs. Take one more full breath here. And then this time we're going to walk the feet all the way forward to the hands at the top of the mat. Keep going. Now widen the feet out so they're a little bit wider than the hips. Still keep the feet parallel. Now bend your knees and interlace the fingers behind your back. Lift your arms straight up towards the sky and then take them up and all the way over, still with your knees bent here. Just let your head hang down. Keep your elbows soft. And keep the contact of your belly, your ribs on your thighs. Keep taking the arms up and all the way over. And then you can either keep your knees bent here or press the top of the thighs back and begin to work slowly, incrementally towards straight legs. Keep pressing thighs back, not so much your knees back, but the top of your thighs. Last full breath here. And then release the arms down slowly and lift the chest, lengthen your spine forward. Bring your feet in a little closer, hip width. Bring your hands to your hips and come all the way up to stand slowly. Good. All right, let's take one Surya Namaskar A, just in the regular way. And then the second one, we're going to do it a little bit differently today. So bring your feet hip width distance apart and inhale, sweep the arms out and up. Now exhale and fold over and down. Inhale, lift the chest halfway, lengthening your spine forward. You can bring hands to the shins again or by the toes if you feel a little bit more open here. Then place your hands and step into plank pose. Now we're going to hold plank a little bit longer with the shoulders right over the wrists here. Engage your legs and lift up your inner thighs. So the top of the thighs are turning in. Now keep that and glide your tailbone down. Just be mindful not to overly tuck the tailbone, right? You want to keep the natural curve in the lower part of the spine. Then exhale, slowly lower yourself all the way to the mat. Good. Now come onto the fingertips here for the first cobra. Right in line with the center of your chest, taking your hands off the mat, off the sides of the mat. Lift your elbows up and inhale, begin to rise up to cobra pose. Roll your shoulders back
Slowly lift your head. As the head presses back, soften the chest gently forward. Exhale, come all the way down. And push back to a regular downward facing dog. So feet can be hip width distance apart now, but still start off with bent knees. Ground the thigh bones back, lift the armpits, and then we'll take 3 to 5 breaths to work towards straightening those legs. So it's important to remember that we don't push the knees back first. We push the top of the thighs and the base of the shins back first, and then the knees go last. One more breath here. And then bend the knees, step or jump to your hands at the top of the mat. Lift the chest and lengthen halfway. Exhale and fold over. Inhale, sweep your arms out and come all the way up to stand. Exhale and release the arms down. Good. Okay. So before we do our second round, I'm going to have you grab one of your blocks. Now what we're going to do with the block here is we're going to place it between the lower legs. So it's on the medium width, right between the calf muscles. Okay? Once you've got it there, make sure your feet are parallel to each other and stand up tall. You can bring your hands to your hips here. Now the main thing I want you to focus on here is the action of squeezing the block and how that relates to a toning in your outer hips and a lengthening of your tailbone. So just squeeze the block first on its own and just feel that first. Now when we squeeze the block, the way we do it is by pressing our outer shins back this way. Then we squeeze the block from the back. Okay, so press the outer shins back, squeeze the block from the back, and maybe take a quick look down at your knees, and what you should see as you do this is that your kneecaps track in line with your second toes. So it actually creates a lot of stability there in the lower legs. Okay, now stand up tall. Now feel that action of hugging the shins in toward the block, squeezing the block, and then bring your attention up to the outer hips and see if you can even just begin to imagine this sense of toning here, toning in the outer hips and the lengthening of the tailbone if it's difficult to feel. And if you can feel it, great. So those two actions are related to each other. The action of hugging the shins in and the action of the outer hips toning and the tailbone lengthening down. So now as we go through our standing poses, we're going to play with this action, but the way we're going to play with it is on the front leg, right, in a standing pose, or in the standing leg in a balancing pose. That's the action we want to find, okay? So take your block to the side and come back to downward facing dog. So now the first place we're going to feel this is to lift the right leg up behind. Now bend the right knee and begin to open up that right hip. Now as you open the right hip here, notice the standing leg. Right? You could say this is a bit of a balancing pose here, standing on one leg. So now I want you to find that same action that you just did with both legs when you were standing with the block, but now just with the left leg. So pretend like you're squeezing that block between your shins. Press your outer left shin back and then all the way up the outside edge of the leg to the outer hip now. Press the outer left hip back and see if you can begin to feel that same toning action in the outer left hip.
Don't worry if you can't, we're just exploring this, so take your time. Now, straighten the right leg and square your hip. Step the right foot now all the way through between your hands. Now turn your left heel down and come to side angle pose with the right forearm on the right thigh here. Okay, so now you can see me from the back, so that should be helpful to focus on the front leg action. So the first thing before we focus on the front leg is to get that back leg nice and set. So press the left thigh back as if there's a wall there. Okay, now begin to look down at your front foot, front leg. Now often what happens here is that front knee collapses in. And the reason it collapses in is because the right hip is tight. So I want you to press a bit more weight today towards the outer edge of your foot and look at your knee, making sure it tracks in line with your second toe. And then all the way up from the outer edge of the foot, all the way up the outer side of the leg to the outer hip. Now tone your outer right hip, turn your belly and your chest. Curl back, lean back, keep the forearm on the thigh for now, and then sweep your left arm alongside your ear. So now again here, feel the whole outside edge of the right leg, all the way up to the outer hip, toning the outer hip, and drawing that outer hip under as the left thigh presses back. Now slowly come on all the way down, place your hands, and just switch, go back through downward facing dog. We'll do that to the second side. Take a moment first. Now bring your feet in a little closer and lift your left leg behind you. Now bend the knee and begin to open the hip. So now it's all about that standing leg, that right leg. So if you're not careful, if you look at that right leg, that whole foot and knee will buckle inward. I'm betting that a lot of you noticed that right away, right? So what's the action? It's the same thing here. Try to press more weight toward the outer edge of your right foot and pretend you're squeezing that block between your shins. All the way up to the outer edge of the hip. Can you tone your outer hip? That glute medius muscle in the outer hip, keeping the knee and the toes pointing straight forward. Now straighten up the leg and square the hip. Step the left foot all the way through between your hands and turn the right heel down. Come up with your left forearm on your left thigh. So second side here. Get the back leg nice and strong, pressing the right thigh back, and then look down at the front leg. So press the weight evenly through the foot and then press a little bit more weight toward the outer edge of the foot and then make sure your kneecap tracks in line with your second toe. Then with your awareness, go all the way up the outside edge of that left leg, all the way to the outer hip. Now tone that outer left hip, draw it under and begin to lean back more and more from there. Keeping the knee tracked in line with the second toe. So you can always check down every so often, make sure it's still lined up. Toning the outer hip now, bring your right arm alongside your ear. And breathe here. Right thigh presses back. Outer left hip draws under. Feeling the whole outer edge of the front leg, all the way from the outer edge of the foot to the outer hip. And then slowly come back down and step back, downward facing dog. Let's take it one step further now. So triangle pose to half moon pose. So lift your right leg behind you and step it through between your hands. Turn your left heel down, and here's where you might grab a block here. You're going to place it outside of your right ankle. I'll show you what it's like with the block here so you can see. Right heel lines up with the middle of the left arch. Now, press your left thigh back. And then again, what's happening in the front leg. So press the weight to the outer edge of the foot all the way up the outside of the leg to the hip. Now engage the outer right hip here and straighten your front leg. Pretend you've got that block between the shins on the front leg and you're hugging in so your right kneecap lines up with the second toe. Turn your belly and your chest and extend your left arm up. And breathe here. Now next phase, half moon pose. So bring your left hand back to your hip. Step your back foot a little closer to your front foot and slide that block out in front of you. Now really pay attention to the whole outer edge of your right leg right now, all the way up into the right hip. Try to maintain that awareness there as you lift your left leg behind you. Again, outside edge of the right foot, pressing down. Doesn't mean you're rolling on the foot though. Keep the big toe mound pressing down as well. All the way up to the outer hip. Tone the outer hip. See if you can stack your left hip on top of your right and maybe take the left arm up if you feel stable. Maybe even turn the eyes to the side. Good, now look back, step back. Big step back. Go back to triangle pose. Turn the belly and the chest and reach up. Now from here we're going to take it down and bring both blocks onto the mat here, one on each side of the right foot. Now we're going to move that right foot over slightly to the right and step the back foot a little bit closer to the front foot. The back toes should be turned out about 45 degrees. And what you're aiming for here is to square your hips more toward the top of the mat. Okay? So now, same actions here. So press the left thigh back. And then let's concentrate on that front leg. So keep the big toe mound pressing down. And then work your way all the way up the outside edge of that right leg, all the way to the outer hip. Press the outer right hip back, tone your outer right hip, and lift your chest, lengthening your spine forward. Keep that connection in the front leg as you exhale and fold. Outer right hip presses back. Some of you will keep the blocks, some of you can get rid of the blocks and fold over. Just really make sure you're lengthening as you fold, not hunching your upper back. Okay, now we'll do one more thing here before we go back through down dog. So high lunge. So step your left foot back and lift your back heel up. Take the blocks again. Now keep lifting the inner left thigh up and then check out that front leg again. That connection all the way on the outside edge of the leg, toning the outer hip, drawing it under. Now you're ready to come all the way up into your crescent lunge. Reaching up through the fingertips. Exhale, slowly come back down. Move the blocks, if you have them there, step into downward facing dog. Let's do all of that to the second side. So bring your feet in a little closer and lift your left leg up. Step it through between your hands and we'll set up for triangle pose first, Trikonasana. So turn the back heel down, grab one of your blocks here, put it outside of your left ankle and bring your right hand to your right hip. Now focus on the back leg first, pressing the top of the right thigh back and then look at your front leg. Before you straighten it, that kneecap should already be tracking in line with the second toe. Press the weight more to the outer edge of the foot and draw a line of awareness all the way up the outside of the leg to the outer hip. Wait to feel a toning in the outer hip, drawing that left hip under, and then keep that as you straighten the leg. You're going to find it feels so much more stable. Turn your belly and chest and extend the right arm up. And breathe. Now we'll bring the hand back to the hip and look down.
Step the back foot closer to the front foot and slide the block out in front of you. Half moon pose. So in this transition, try to keep the connection on the outer edge of the foot to the outer hip as you lift your right leg behind you. Keep the left hand under the left shoulder. Outer edge of the foot up to the outer hip. Tone the outer hip, turning the belly and the chest. Take the right arm and stretch it up. Then go back slowly to triangle pose. Again, keep the connection on the outside edge of that front leg. Turn the belly, turn the chest, take the right arm up. Now look down. Take both blocks, one on each side of your front foot. Square your hips more towards the top of the mat. Come up onto the fingertips and lift the chest. Now firm the leg muscles so you feel strong and engaged in your legs. That's the first thing, first priority, to engage the legs. You don't have anywhere to go if you don't have strong muscles, right? So hug the muscles to the bones and then press the inner right thigh back. Keep pressing that front big toe mound down as you bring more attention to the outside edge of your left foot, all the way up the outside edge of the leg to the outer hip. Now press the outer left hip back and lift the chest more. Keep lengthening the spine forward and eventually exhale and fold over. You can get rid of those blocks if you don't need them. Lifting the chest. Keep pressing outer left hip back. And then come back up slowly. Set up for a high lunge. So turn your back toes forward and move the foot further away. Maybe you grab those blocks again. Give yourself a little bit more freedom, a little bit more height. All right, now lift the back inner thigh up. And then from the outer edge of the front foot, left foot, all the way to the outer hip. Tone the outer hip, tracking the kneecap in line with the second toe as you're ready to come up. All the way up, sweep your arms, crescent lunge. Should feel much more stability now in your outer left hip here to descend into it without collapsing. Exhale, come down and step back, downward facing dog. Take 3 slow breaths here. Pressing the top of your thighs back, lifting the armpits, and slowly working towards extending the legs. Come on down, rest in child's pose. Now, as you come down to your child's pose here, noticing the natural rhythm of your breath after this strong practice. What does the breath feel like now? And then walk your hands backwards. Bring your knees together, sit back on your heels. If it's too much to sit back this way, you can sit on a block. Close your eyes and pause here. And again, just give yourself enough space and time to be still. We're already rushing around enough in life. So if we come onto our yoga mat and then we continue to rush through it, we're really not changing any kind of habits there. What we're doing is reinforcing the same habits that we have in our daily lives. So space for integration, to feel the breath in between your postures is crucial. Last few breaths here. Now we're going to make our way onto the belly. And here is where I'm going to need a blanket. Here is where you might need a blanket if you have a wood floor and you need a little bit more padding for your hip points. Okay, so put something down there and then come down onto your belly and onto your elbows. So Sphinx pose here. Okay, elbows should be right underneath your shoulders and your forearms should be parallel to each other. Now we're going to come into plank first, so tuck your toes under and start by pushing down through your knees. And as the knees push down, the thighs and the pelvis starts to lift up. Now remember the action we worked on squeezing the block between the shins, the toning in the outer hips. Now see if you can find that same action here without over engaging your glute muscles. Draw your belly and your ribs back and then tuck your chin into your chest and then lift your kneecaps off the ground. So now you're in plank on your feet. Now keep lifting the thighs up, tone your outer hips and then lift your head back up. So your neck is neutral. Breathe here 5 breaths. Try to evenly distribute the work, the effort throughout your body, so not one part is doing more than another part. Everything is working equally. Bring the knees back down and the thighs and the pelvis all the way back down. Now untuck the toes, keep your hands where they are, squeeze your elbows in and see if you can lift your forearms, your elbows all the way up. So a little slightly different variation of cobra pose, plugging the arm bones in and softening your chest forward. Then come back down slowly and we're going to lift the legs off the mat and sweep the arms back behind us for Shalabhasana. Now you can stay here or bend the knees and grab your ankles or your feet and press your feet back and up, lifting your chest, Dhanurasana, bow pose. Exhale, come all the way back down slowly and rest your forehead on top of your hands. Good. Okay, now you're going to press back slowly and take child's pose. If you have your blanket there, you can take it away. And then we're going to come onto the back now, slowly. And before you come onto the back, I'm going to show you what we're doing first, okay? So we're going to take a couple of bridge poses here, and a little different than we usually do with the block under your sacrum, okay? So just watch the first one here as you come onto your back. Turn the palms up and tuck your shoulder blades underneath your back. Make sure your feet are parallel to each other and hip width distance apart. Now, as you raise your hips up, keep the weight pressing to the inner edges of the feet more and hug the thighs in, but yet, can you find that same toning in your outer hips? And lifting of the tailbone. Now, as you take your hips up, you're going to take your elbows and you're going to kind of wedge your hands underneath your sacrum here. Underneath your sacrum. That's it. So your fingers are pointing out and your elbows are underneath you. Now lift your chin away from your chest and move your chest towards your chin. Now come up onto the tippy toes here, and that's going to give you even a little bit more freedom. Keep the feet parallel. I know that's not going to be easy, but do the best you can. Squeeze the legs in and then really slowly bring the heels, the inner heels especially, back down to the mat. Interlace the fingers behind your back. Press down and lift your hips, lift your hips. And then exhale, come all the way down and rest in between. You can place your hands on your belly and receive that. Okay, so now your turn. We're going to do it twice through together. Okay, so if for some reason it's just too difficult to get your hands underneath your sacrum, you can always just put a block there instead. Okay. The block has 3 different heights, so you could choose which height works better for you. Again, as I always say, this is not about forcing your body. So if you're trying to get your heels of your hands under there and you feel like you're just having to force it, then that's not a good idea, right? So then you just grab your block instead. So set up for bridge pose. Remember, anytime we force something, that's how we hurt ourselves. This is all about learning skillful actions. And when you learn skillful actions, you create freedom. When you move unskillfully, you hurt yourself. Okay, so very big difference. So engage your legs, tuck your shoulders underneath, press your inner edges of your feet down and lift your pelvis off the mat. Either place a block underneath or see if you can bring the heels of your hands underneath your sacrum. Come up on to the tippy toes here. Walk your feet back so your heels are right underneath your knees. Lift your chin away from your chest. Now, keep your hands there if you have them and slowly bring the heels back down. Inner heels back down, thighs turning in. As you bring your heels down, can you lift your hips up a little higher? Take your hands away and interlace your fingers. Extend through your arms and lift, lift, lift. Can you find that action of toning in the outer hips? Toning in the outer hips, lifting the tailbone. And then exhale, come all the way down. Pause here. You can touch the inner knees together and close your eyes. Okay, let's do one more like that. So set it up. Turn the palms up and slowly lift your hips. Tucking the shoulders underneath and then placing the heels of the hands there or put a block under your sacrum. Rise up onto the tippy toes, lift your chin away from your chest, and then slowly, slowly bringing the heels back down again. Take your hands away, interlace your fingers, and extend through your arms as you lift your chin away from your chest and move the chest to the chin. Exhale, come all the way down slowly. Again, relax as you get there. This time, soles of the feet together, Supta Baddha Konasana, resting hands on the belly. Just letting the body be soft and relaxed. And again, finding your natural rhythm here. Now bring your knees back together and we'll finish with a happy baby pose. So grab the outer edges of your feet with your hands if you can. Now if that's difficult, you might grab a block and put the block under your head here like this. That might make it a little easier for you to reach for your feet here, okay? So do that if you need it. And then as you grab the outer edges of the feet, begin to pull down with your hands. And then balance out the action of pulling down by pushing up into your hands with your feet. So again, there we go. There's another balanced action, right? One is going one way, the other is going the opposite way. So pulling down and pushing up. Now, as you pull down and push up, press your sit bones back down towards the floor. It's like you're trying to get your whole sacrum to go back down on the floor again. Not easy to do, but you're working towards that slowly. Couple more breaths here. And then slowly release the legs. And we'll set up for our final Shavasana relaxation. So you can put something underneath your head. I like to put my blanket. A little bit more cushioning there. Straighten the legs and relax them. And bring your arms down by your sides. If you need a little more support for your lower back, you could slide a roll blanket or a bolster under your knees. Now let the body become still. Feeling tension dissolving, melting away. Noticing all the subtle sensations moving through your body as you relax. Now begin to tap into your natural breath. So no matter what is going on around you, your attention is within. Not allowing yourself to become so easily distracted by outside sounds or movement. All of that can be there, but your focus is on your breath. And the weight of your body releasing more and more into the earth. So very slowly begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Allow the breath to gently, softly deepen and gently bring your body back to life. Bend your knees and roll over to your right side and slowly make your way back up to sit. Make sure as you come up to sit that you sit on something, whether it's your block or meditation cushion or folded blanket, so that as you come up, you can sit with proper alignment of your spine. So take the time to do that, and then once you've come up here, allow your eyes to close. And bringing your body back to stillness once again. So if we're not really observing the movement of our mind, right, the thoughts as they come and go, we're not really practicing yoga. It's more like just physical movement, physical exercise. So what makes yoga yoga, or yoga meaning union, is that we learn how to begin to observe the fluctuations of our mind. And so everything we do before that, all the asana, all the ways in which we lengthen and strengthen and realign and open, all of that sets us up to have the best possible foundation to be able to sit and observe the most subtle layer of our being, our mind. And it's not that we're trying to push away the thoughts or get rid of them or change them in any way, but rather we're practicing shifting our attention to the breath. And by doing so, we naturally begin to concentrate the mind. The mind naturally becomes more stable, more steady, and less distracted. And when we're practicing from that perspective, that's when we're going to begin to develop our own home practice. So use your breath to find your natural rhythm. And as you're practicing, notice how long you can keep the mind anchored on the breath. Maybe it's not very long at first, but as you continue to practice, it's going to get longer and longer. And you're going to have much more inner spaciousness to stay present. So draw your hands together in front of your heart, lifting your heart as you gently bow your head. Lift your head to honor each other and all beings. Namaste. Thank you all so much again for being here with me and for practicing with me. I hope you enjoyed this practice. I hope you enjoyed this focus this week. So this is a donation-based class, so I will leave my Venmo and PayPal accounts at the bottom there so you can see that. Please subscribe to my channel, please like the videos, share them with friends. I'd love to get all of this out into the world even more. So thank you again, everyone. I will look forward to seeing you next week. Namaste.